So we're going to go to Act 1, Scene 1, characters in the play. And it does introduce itself with a ghost. It begins actually at a watch. And if you can think of a city with walls around it and people on the watchtowers, sentinels looking out for danger, that's where it begins. Why are they in this position? It's not made clear yet, but it will be made clear very soon. The reason why is because Denmark has attacked Norway. There's been a war that's taken place, and they're in danger of having a return conflict. And Fortinbras, the Prince of Norway, is going to come in eventually, actually comes in the 5th act. Fortinbras is a man who's also lost his father. His father was killed by Hamlet's father. Fortinbras, who is a fantastic revenge tragedy hero. His name, Fortinbras, strong in arms, is what Hamlet is not. And it's not because he's not strong in arms, it's because his intellect renders him incapable of the action that Fortinbras is. And Fortinbras is admired by Hamlet, for that matter. But the danger of attack is there right at the outset of the play. And it's going to come in at the end. So Norway has already been, the attack on Norway precedes the telling of the play, but you'll find little snippets of information that will hint at this battle that took place before, and the danger now posed by Norway to Denmark. Remember, Norway is just across the sea. So it'll be a sea invasion. They're standing on the ramparts looking out for an invasion from the sea. Bernardo and Francisco. For some reason, the Danes have Italian names. Who knows why? Who's there, Bernardo? Francisco. Nay, answer me. Stand and unfold yourself. Long live the king. Bernardo? He. You come most carefully upon your hour. He's doing an hour's watch, and he's replacing him as the night watchman. 'Tis now struck 12. Get thee to bed, Francisco. For this relief, much thanks. 'Tis bitter cold, and I am sick at heart. Have you had quiet guard? Not a mouse stirring. Well, good night. If you do meet Horatio and Marcellus, the rivals of my watch, bid them make haste. I think I hear them. Stand ho, who is there? Friends to this ground, and liegemen to the Dane, give you good night. Marcellus, oh, farewell, honest soldier. Who hath relieved you? Bernardo hath my place. Give you good night. Francisco gone. Hola, Bernardo, say, what is Horatio there? A piece of him. Welcome, Horatio. Welcome, good Marcellus. What has this thing appeared again tonight? Okay, so now we introduce. Has this thing again appeared tonight? I have seen nothing. Horatio says, 'tis but our fantasy, and will not let belief take hold of him. Let me stop here. Go back to what we said at the outset in A Midsummer Night's Dream. There's various views of the imagination circulating in Shakespeare's day. One is that the imagination is a deceitful faculty. It leads us astray. It's something not to be trusted. In some ways, if we trust the imagination, it will actually ruin us. We see that in A Midsummer Night's Dream. The other, and the one that Shakespeare most strongly represents, is that the imagination is a faculty that can lead us in thinking rightly about things. That's not in evidence here. Horatio, a Renaissance man, just like Hamlet, Hamlet's best friend actually, is very skeptical about what he's heard. Why? Because he's heard of ghosts. And not only ghosts, a little bit more, but let's get into that. He says 'tis but our fantasy, and will not let belief take hold of him, touching this dread sight, twice seen of us. Therefore I have entreated him along with us to watch the minutes of this night, that if again this apparition come, he may approve our eyes and speak to it. Tush, tush, strength will not appear. Sit down a while, and let us once again assail your ears, that are so fortified against our story. So they're standing in the fortification, in the fort, and you are fortified against the story. What we have 2 nights seen. Well, sit we down, and let us hear Bernardo speak of this. Last night of all, when yon same star that westward from the pole had made his course, illumined that part of heaven where now it burns, Marcellus and myself, the bell then beating 1, peace, break thee off. Look where it comes again. In the same figure, like the king that's dead. And then Marcellus to Horatio, thou art a scholar. Speak to it, Horatio. Because he's ridiculing him. You didn't believe us? Now you can see it. Well, you're a scholar. You're Mr. Smarty Pants. You speak to it then. Looks he not like the king? Mark it, Horatio. Most like. It harrows me with fear and wonder. It would be spoke to. Speak to it, Horatio. What art thou that usurpst this time of night, together with that fair and warlike form in which the majesty of buried Denmark did sometimes march? By heaven, I charge thee, speak. It is offended. See, it stalks away. Stay, speak, speak. I charge thee, speak. Ghost exits. 'Tis gone and will not answer. And then Bernardo. How now, Horatio? You tremble and look pale. Is not this something more than fantasy? What think you on't? Before my God, I might not this believe without the sensible and true avouch of mine own eyes. He's a skeptic. He's used to, and he's a discerning man. He's not going to believe in ghost stories, but now I've seen it. Is it not like the king, as thou art to thyself? Such was the very armor he had on when he the ambitious Norway combated. So frowned he once when in an angry parley he smote the sledded poleaxe on the ice. 'Tis strange. Thus twice before, and jump at this dead hour, with martial stalk hath he gone by our watch. In what particular thought to work, I know not. But in the gross and scope of mine opinion, this bodes some strange eruption to our state, the state of Denmark. There's something about him that bears on Denmark. Okay, good now. Sit down and tell me. And I'll go over. Tell me, he that knows. Because again, Marcellus and company are seeing the smarty pants young undergraduate who thinks that he knows everything about everything. So that's part of the thing. You tell me, sit down and tell me, he that knows, why this same strict and most observant watch so nightly toils the subject of the land, and why such daily cast of brazen cannon and foreign mart for implements of war, why such impress of shipwrights whose sore task does not divide the Sunday from the week. Why are we on war footing? They're even working on Sundays trying to get ships churned out. Why are we acting as if we are in the middle of a war when the war is over? What might be toward that this sweaty haste doth make the night joint labor with the day? Who is it that can inform me? That can I. At least the whisper goes so. Our last king, whose image even but now appeared to us, was, as you know, by Fortinbras of Norway, thereto pricked on by a most emulate pride, dared to the combat, in which our valiant Hamlet, for so this side of our known world esteemed him, did slay this Fortinbras, who by a sealed compact, well ratified by law and heraldry, did forfeit with his life all those his lands which he stood seized of to the conqueror, against the which a moiety competent was gauged by our king, a majority, by our king, which had returned to the inheritance of Fortinbras, had he been vanquisher, as by the same account. So he gives back some of the land that could have been his. And by the same comart and carriage of the article design, his fell to Hamlet. Now, Sir, young Fortinbras, of unimproved metal, hot and full, hath in the skirts of Norway, here and there, sharked up a list of lawless resolutes for food and diet to some enterprise that hath a stomach in it, which is no other, as it doth well appear unto our state, but to recover of us by strong hand and terms compulsatory those foresaid lands so by his father lost. And this, I take it, is the main motive of our preparations, the source of this our watch, and the chief head of this post-haste and rummage in the land. Now, this is insignificant to the plot for most of the play, but this is how it begins, and we then forget about Fortinbras, more or less. But then he's going to come in at the end. And he's going to bring about a return of a sort of a justice and order. But it's against something that happened even before the play, outside the context of what the majority of the play is concerned with, which is the slaying of Hamlet Sr. That's what the play is about the internal dynamics of Denmark. But the external affairs are still there. And there's been an injustice done there, at least so he believes, on Fortinbras's part to his father, which he wants to rectify. And so again, we have foils. We have two characters that act as foils for one another. We have Fortinbras and we have Hamlet. Keep them in mind. Bernardo, I think it be no other, but even so, well may it sort that this portentous figure comes armored through our watch, so like the king that was and is the question of these wars. A mote it is to trouble the mind's eye. A mote is a little speck in your eye. Remember, Jesus talks about the mote and the log. The mote is a small little piece. It is to trouble the mind's eye in the most high and palmy state of Rome. A little ere the mightiest Julius fell, Julius Caesar. The graves stood tenantless, and the sheeted dead did squeak and gibber in the Roman streets, as stars with trains of fire and dews of blood. So there were portents, omens before Julius Caesar. Remember, he's stabbed on the Capitoline right in front of the Roman Senate. Though there were ominous signs even before this that presage it, likewise here. And so he's making an analogy for us. As stars with trains of fire and dews of blood, disasters in the sun, and the moist star, upon whose influence Neptune's empire stands, was sick almost to doomsday with eclipse. And even the like precurse of feared events, as harbingers preceding still the fates and prologue to the omen coming on, have heaven and earth together demonstrated unto our climatures and countrymen. And then the ghost comes back at this point. But soft, behold, lo, where it comes again. I'll cross it, though it blast me. Stay, illusion. It spreads his arms. If thou hast any sound or use of voice, speak to me. If there be any good thing to be done, that may to thee do ease and grace to me, speak to me. If thou art privy to thy country's fate, which happily foreknowing may avoid, O speak. Or if thou hast uphoarded in thy life extorted treasure in the womb of earth, for which they say you spirits oft walk in death, speak of it. And then the cock crows. Literary precedents for this. Any come to mind? Herod? Yes, well, cock crow 3 times, and so forth. Could be daybreak as well, but there's a little bit a sense of betrayal. So Shakespeare using the plot device of, and immediately the audience connects those betrayal. The cock crows, stop, and stay and speak. Stop it, Marcellus. Shall I strike it with my partisan? Do, if it will not stand. 'Tis here, ghost. 'Tis gone, 'tis gone. We do it wrong, being so majestical to offer the show of violence. And so off they go. And then it started like a guilty thing upon a fearful summons. I have heard the cock, that is the trumpet to the morn, doth with his lofty and shrill sounding throat awake the god of day, And at his warning, whether in sea or fire, or in earth or air, the extravagant and erring spirit hies to his confine, and of the truth herein, this present object made probation. It faded on the crowing of the cock. Some say that ever against that season comes wherein our Saviour's birth is celebrated. This bird of dawning singeth all night long. And then, they say, no spirit dare stir abroad. The nights are wholesome, when then no planet strike, no fairy takes, nor witch hath power to charm. So hallowed and so gracious is that time. This is just myths that he's heard. I've heard. And Horatio, so have I heard, and do in part believe it. But look, the morn in russet mantle clad walks o'er the dew off yon high eastward hill. Break we our watch up, and by my advice, let us impart what we have seen tonight unto young Hamlet, for upon my life, this spirit, dumb to us, will speak to him. Do you consent we shall acquaint him with it, as needful in our loves, fitting our duty? Let's do it, I pray. And I this morning know where we shall find him most convenient, and out they go. So Act 1, Scene 1 sets the stage. It introduces Fortinbras and the revenge there. It introduces the ghost and suggests an ominous portent to his appearance in the guise of Hamlet's father. And so we have the staging for the whole play set up right here. The ghostly action, but also, to some degree, the university man Horatio, incapable of believing it unless he saw it, but once he saw it, he still doesn't know what to make of it. Still does not know what to make of it. I'll pick it up next after the break, and we'll carry on with the